Hey everyone, this is your weekly episode of the Zephyr podcast, where we talk about all things Zephyr, embedded, open source, and lots of other cool stuff. I'm Benjamin, your host.
And I'm Fabio, your other host.
Happy New Year, Fabio.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you
Right?
as well. Welcome back.
Yeah, we had a short, it was only two weeks break, but we're back. We're going to try to catch up, I guess, on some of the news, things that happened in the project and beyond over the past couple of weeks. Anything that you did for New Year's Eve? Any cool stuff that you've been working on during your holidays?
Oh yeah, I had a great New Year's Eve. I spent the evening on the microscope cutting traces on a board, trying to troubleshoot an error. This is the STM32H5 board I did with Ethernet, PoE, and some LED drivers. And I found that I was getting a good 10-15% packet loss when the power converter, the PoE power converter, was loaded. So yeah, it was a 31st December of troubleshooting, and yeah, in the end I found it, but I needed to add some filters and ferrite bead on the power line between the DC-DC converter and the Ethernet port, and this was a lot of cutting traces and soldering stuff in a very small gap under the microscope. Great New Year's Eve. How about yourself, Benjamin?
Oh, well, I have a really young child at home, so I think, I was in bed maybe at 9 p.m. or something. So I don't
Brilliant.
know which of us had the most uneventful or like boring New Year's Eve, but it looks like we need to get a life in a way. No, that's that's what happened. So yeah, lots of cool stuff in the happened over the holidays. I mean, not that much actually. We were realizing that earlier this week. The Zephyr project itself was a bit quiet, but still there were some interesting news, and also there was CES in Las Vegas earlier this week. So yeah, lots of interesting news.
Yeah, I would say that the whole merging thing, since we're both involved, was fairly quiet. This is what I've heard from other release engineers as well. But there were people were working on it, so there was some activity on the Discord channel. People were working on stuff and playing on boards. I guess somebody must have gotten their SoC board under the tree for Christmas.
Yeah, totally. Which actually reminds me, Jonas is the name of the guy, right? Like we have this gentleman who is contributing crazy amount of shields, and I think he was spending some of his time during the holidays bringing up a few new boards, a lot of RP2040 Raspberry Pi Pico boards being added. So that was nice. I caught something also on Discord. I don't know if you saw that one, Fabio, that was in the random channel.
Yep.
I think some people got under the Christmas tree time to play with LLMs and AI and code agents, which I actually don't mind because it sometimes sort of like allows people to think outside the box. And so we will put the link to that Discord conversation, but that was, in a nutshell, tinkering with display drivers and LVGL in Zephyr to expose the frame buffer and to stream effectively the GUI to render it over WebSockets. I think it's over WebSockets, at least like in the browser. So you connect to a board that doesn't necessarily have a display, but yet you can render and visualize its the GUI that it might be running. So it's kind of like VNC for Zephyr, I guess one could say. But yeah, and I mean, it's an interesting experiment. And the person who posted that said that basically they did get a lot of help from coding agents and whatnot. And apparently they managed to assemble and mash up quite a few things like USB CDC, NCM, and DHCP and whatever. So it's an interesting experiment.
That's impressive. Just random thing connected to each other that you would not expect. Good job.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. What else? Yeah, something I saw on Reddit, which is probably some food for thoughts for the community, and maybe some people will try to hack around. This is from the guy who brought QMU to the world, and apparently there's a new project from him, from Fabrice Bellard, which is
What
called
a
Micro.
the legend.
Yeah, totally. When I saw the Reddit post, I was like, oh, I know that name. Oh yeah, of course I know that name. It's called MQuick.js or MicroQuick.js, and it's his. I mean, as you can imagine, this is a really small JS JavaScript runtime that, as per the README of the project, requires as little as 10K of RAM and 100K of RAM, which is, yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Lots of like tests, and it seems a pretty feature complete project. With like even a REPL and stuff like that, and I mean, there's no reason why it wouldn't run on Zephyr, right? So like
Good stuff.
that's an interesting one.
Nice. So yeah, on my side, I was playing a bit with the Zephyr network stack for my project, and I have this board that I'm going to put on the network, and I need to send data to multiple of them and do some coordination. So my initial idea was to use the MQTT stack in Zephyr, but actually I ended up trying to do the thing just using Ethernet UDP multicast, just to keep things a bit simpler and not have to deal with configuration. And it's actually
and also not. I mean, MQTT, you need a server, you need a broker,
yeah,
right?
and not having to install a broker on the system. It's something that I just want to plug on a network that is not mine, and I want it to work. So I was trying to come up with this setup, using multicast and then IPv6 link local address, and it works. I mean, as long as all your packets are being received. That's why I immediately noticed the problem with the PoE thing that I mentioned, because I was like, with UDP, if you have packet loss, you're gonna find it immediately. And so as it happened, I was doing my test, and a few days after, I bumped into this video from Appalard. Is a guy that does a lot of video on network stuff, and he did some test with Ethernet 10-base T1S setup, which is really cool. And we do support it. He didn't use a Zephyr, but we do support it in Zephyr. And I was thinking this is something that it would be interesting to play with. I may end up doing some boards. So this is a Ethernet variant that is meant to be used in automotive, in industrial and automotive setup, and it's 10 megabit, but it runs on a single pair, including power. It's very interesting. It's like magic. Yeah, well, based on my experience, it sounds like something that breaks, but whatever. So he posted a cool video, and he was doing pretty much the same setup that I was working on, which is using sensor nodes on a segment, and doing the communication using multicast and IPv6 link local address, so that you don't have to set up anything. So yeah, this would work really well with Zephyr. We're gonna link the video. I think I'll get myself some hardware to play with this, because it looks very interesting. The way he framed it was that is kind of an alternative to CAN bus. I'm not sure about that. It seems like a lot more complexity for maybe not a lot more benefit. I mean, you get addresses and 10 times the bandwidth, but geez, it's like T1S.
And really long cables, I think, if I remember correctly. I may be wrong.
Yeah, you don't go that far with T1S. It's meant to be used like in a self-contained system. But yeah, it's an interesting technology. I know that ADI was pushing for it quite a bit. I don't know. Something to play with.
And when you sort of like, I did share the link with me, put it in our shared notes, documents, etc. This kind of reminded me last year at Embedded World, I met with some folks that were interested in contributing some boards that they have. So a company by the name of KWS Computer System out of Germany. They have a bunch of Raspberry Pi Pico and Pico 2 based boards that actually they gave me one. I should try and play with them. So it's supported in Zephyr, like T1S, 10-base T1S. We have some microchip drivers that support it, like microchip LAN 86, whatever. But yeah, we have some support for it, and that kind of, yeah, that's intriguing. I want to play with it.
Yeah, and by the way, all of the network stuff, like it's brilliant. I was using normal socket, doing all of the IOCTL you do for, well, the set sock opt in this case, for handling multicast, both IPv6 and IPv4, and yeah, everything works. Like you can take the same snippet of C code and run it on your local Linux machine and on your Zephyr firmware. So yeah, props to the guys working on POSIX and all of the network stack. It like works really well. I actually bumped into a bug on IPv4 multicast and fixed it. So that was fun. Something good came out of the troubleshooting for this.
Yep. Speaking of, well, kind of switching gears just a little bit, but I just mentioned Raspberry Pi Pico. There's there's something you wanted to tell us maybe about this.
Yeah, so the Raspberry Pi maintainer he submitted the pull request like 2 years ago. I think the pull request was dated 2024, and yeah, this got merged, and this adding support for the Pico tool metadata for Zephyr build. So this adds some extra information to the UF2 file, to the firmware that is built by the Zephyr build system, and then you can use it with Pico tool to get like the name of the firmware, which pin are used, where are some interfaces. I'm not entirely sure what you get out of this. It's I mean, I suppose it's something to help you like build your hardware on like a breadboard or something. But yeah, this has been in the works for a while, and it's now merged. It's supported. It was enabled by default. That has been rolled back because it caused some problem with one of the boards, but it's going to be fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah, more complete support for Raspberry Pi Pico platform. I guess it's pretty popular.
And I haven't looked at this like super closely, but it feels like maybe there could be some kind of follow-up to bridge the gap between this and the generic binary descriptor features we have in Zephyr, or like is there? Yeah, we need to look it up. All right. What else? So yeah, I hope people listening don't mind. I'm pretty sure you don't mind. But yeah, we're just back from this short break. This is still catching up on some of the news. So it might be a bit all over the place. But one thing that suddenly happened earlier this week, like I was mentioning, is CES. We have, my colleague Kate Stewart was there, like looking at all the different booths and stuff, trying to spot some interesting Zephyr products. Actually, if you check out the Zephyr project LinkedIn page, you will see some of the things she saw, including, and there were some PRs also around that one, more keyboards. I mean, there's no Zephyr podcast without keyboard mentions, right? But Keychron, which some of you into gaming might know, like they do basically really nice, really fancy keyboards. They launched a new keyboard, which is effectively powered by ZMK, as in the Zephyr-based keyboard firmware project. And they have some, what I hear from the conversations Kate had with the folks from Keychron, like the CEO and whatnot, they were like, yeah, well, I mean, Zephyr, that was awesome for us because we basically get 600 plus hours of battery life out of the whatever MCU they use. I'm not sure what that is, but yeah, they have like 8 kilohertz refresh rate and stuff, and yet really, really good battery life. So that's really nice to see.
It's always whenever you see kilohertz in an input device, it has to be for gamers. The only reason why they're limited to 8 kilohertz, I presume, is because that's as much as you can go for an interrupt endpoint on a USB high-speed device.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we need. I'm wondering what's the next step. I guess maybe we can make them go over Wi-Fi or PCI Express directly. We need to break the 8 kilohertz barrier for input devices.
Go megahertz. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
The DMA straight from the keyboard to whatever. So they said it's the first mass-produced mechanical keyboard of its kind.
ZMK mechanical keyboard series. Yeah. Which I don't know. Like I'm not following the news closely, but
I think this is a standard thing for CES, so that multiple companies make the same claim for the same thing at the same time. But I mean, Kinesis was doing the Advanced 360 or whatever it's called. The Zephyr has been out for a while. Anyway, good job. First of its kind.
Yeah, right. And speaking of keyboards, one thing that I was really excited to see over the, I think that the PR showed up sometime during the holidays. But as some of you might know, Zephyr is very popular for building embedded controllers, and you, Fabio, certainly know that. Like Chromebook laptops use Zephyr for the embedded controller, and at some point in the past few years, the framework laptops started using the same project, and so effectively the embedded controller / firmware on the framework laptops is very much Zephyr powered. And what was really nice to see is a new pull request. I think there's actually a couple, but the keyboard modules in the framework laptops are now effectively available as a Zephyr board. Like if you want to tinker and create your new custom driver and firmware for the framework, the keyboard module, it's now merged. It's now available. I think they use a Raspberry Pi Pico, if I remember correctly, for.
That seems to be the case. So just to clarify, they have a firmware on the embedded controller, but they use a separate microcontroller on the keyboard. This is not what is done normally. Like on Chromebooks, the embedded controller also manages the keyboard. But in this case, since they are focused on this modular approach, the keyboard is a USB device, right? So the stock firmware runs QMK. But it looks like there is interest in running ZNK as well. And since it's a standalone device, the cool thing is that you can refresh it without, like if you refresh the embedded controller, you have to restart your laptop, right? But in this case,
you have to pray, and you sweat, and you're like, I'm going to break my device.
We have our ways of having a safe recovery, but like you really don't want to work on the easy code on the device that you're flashing. But in this case, it's its own device. So if you want to have your special keyboard feature on your laptop, you can flash it, I guess. And with this, you will be able to do it with ZNK. The keyboard matrix is a bit weird. It's not a standard digital matrix. It uses a funny configuration, but the framework guys told us that they are working on a Zephyr driver for it. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. But in the meantime, you can do other stuff with it, I suppose.
But that was really nice to see, and that's actually also a good opportunity for me to remind the community at large, and those of you listening to us. I know many of you are based in Europe, based on our stats and stuff. FOSDEM in Brussels, this big hacker / open source software conference is coming up in just about 3 weeks, and we will be having lots of Zephyr folks there. We have a Zephyr table as well. If you are interested in helping out, showing some demos, etc., just ping me or like show up on Discord, and we can discuss. But I hope to see many of you there. And interestingly, this year our table will be co-located with. We will be in a different building than we typically are, hanging out with all the embedded folks. And so like KiCad as a table, Framework as a table, and a bunch of other projects like RISC-V, I think, will be nearby as well. So it will be great to hang out with this crowd, and I'm looking forward to catching up with the Framework folks to see what they are up to for sure.
Yeah, looking forward to that. And we're both gonna be there, so if you show up and you see us, say hi.
Yep, it'll be fun. All right, what else?
LEDs, there's been a lot of work on light strips. So the WS2812, yeah, I don't love them, but everyone uses them because they're cheap and they make colored lights. So there's been quite some activity related to them. So the first one was there is a pull request in flight for ESP32 for driving those LEDs using the RMT controller, which I had no idea existed. This is the remote control transceiver. It's a device meant for receiving data from infrared remotes, of all things. Somehow it can, well, and generate codes, I suppose, and somehow it can be used for driving NeoPixel LEDs, which is shocking to me, but it's amazing what people come up with for driving this stuff. I guess everybody really likes them. So pull request in flight. This would be the third way of driving these LEDs on an ESP32, which is actually useful if you need to drive multiple strips, right? So
I think we mentioned that last time, right? Like there's a way that's SPI, and the other would be what, GPIO?
I2S. GPIO, you don't really want to do it because you need to keep the CPU busy, right? So if you have anything more than one LEDs, you really want DMA. And so I was actually playing with this on an ESP32 C3 for myself because I wanted to drive multiple strips. And yeah, you can use SPI and I2S, and with this one you can have a third strip, I guess. So this is really cool. As long as it implements DMA, it's going to be usable. So very, very good stuff. Talking about the other very popular platform, the Raspberry Pi Pico. So I was testing on that one as well. I have this 5-meter strip, and I'm trying to see on what platform I can use it. And on the Pico, it's a similar story. I tried the PIO-based driver, but that one was not using DMA, so you wouldn't be able to use it for a long strip. But the SPI driver was working fine. That is using the standard, I think it's the ARM core, the PL011, and that one was using DMA. But while I was working on this stuff, a pull request arrived to implement DMA for the PIO based driver. So that's another option now. And this actually makes the Pico a very good platform for driving LED strips because you have like 6 PIO units, right? So you can drive a lot of strips. As long as you have enough RAM to allocate for the DMA buffer, which on this device, since you use 1 byte per bit, is a lot. You can drive a lot of LEDs. And the other thing that's going on is that still from the framework guys, they are submitting an overlay for the LED sample using DMA for the STM32C0, which is something that I also use personally, and it works really well. I love the chip. So yeah, LEDs, a lot of options. You need to do it right. It's not trivial to drive a long strip correctly.
Yeah. And one thing that I would love to see, I think I mentioned that on Discord a long time ago. There is this pretty popular project, open source project called WLED, right? Which is, I think, one of the main targets is ESP32, but basically allowing to turn virtually any ESP32 into a node that you can deploy mainly in your house to create fancy LED or RGB LED lightings. And it leverages ESP32 connectivity to provide you with nice HTTP server that you can use to configure the thing. And so this is basically for things like you have an ESP32 with a microphone on it. You do something that reacts to music sort of stuff, right? And or you can program like lots of patterns, and you can do really complex LED matrix and whatnot. And so I would love to see the equivalent built in with Zephyr, because like for a while, and as you sort of just hinted at, it was hard on some platforms. It was hard to get really good performance with long strips and so on. But now it looks like we're at a point where on ESP32, on Pico, and potentially a bunch of others, we have like as good as it gets when it comes to performance. So it would be lovely to see things like, where WebSocket APIs to control their RGB LED, that kind of stuff. So yeah, would love to see a Z LED as opposed to WLED.
For sure.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Some work for coding agents again.
Yep. Should we talk about some new boards?
Yeah, there's a few new boards. What did you spot? I think many are from several from Adafruit, I think, and interesting boards in terms of like having lots of peripherals available. Like the one is from Citron, which I think is, I guess, one of those AliExpress vendors. Like if I remember correctly, it's not like a crazy.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but somebody pushed this board, which is pretty interesting. I think it's meant for like robotic stuff like that. So it's the Motion 2350 Pro. We start to see board with the 2350, I guess. So this one has 4 DC motor controller, 10 amp each. So it's an interesting looking board. Like there's a decent power stage. So I guess if you're in robotics and need to make something that moves fast, this could be a good one. Bunch of PWMs essentially.
That moves fast or that's heavy, because like there would be really big motors that you would control with this.
Yeah, and servos as well. So a bunch of PWMs essentially. And the other one also for doing things that move is the Adafruit Prop Maker, which I guess would have been cool for Halloween. So I guess you'll have to use it for next Halloween. This one has some servo interfaces and an I2C based speaker output and some connector for LEDs. So this is meant for making things that make light, noise, and movement. So that's a good one for props.
Yeah, which I mean, Halloween for sure. But one thing, now that we're in 2026, this is the year where Zephyr celebrates its 10-year anniversary. Like we launched Zephyr 10 years ago at Embedded World in Germany, which, by the way, like in just a few months, it's going to be Embedded World, and we will be there big time to celebrate the Zephyr anniversary or birthday. I would love some kind of prop to demo Zephyr stuff. I don't know if it's like a birthday cake with RGB LED candles, and I don't know, you blow on them, and you have some like noise detection sensors, whatever, that react to it. But I think we can come up with something. So just throwing it out there for listeners to let us know, or let me know if they want to brainstorm and work on some kind of like interesting demo that along the lines of celebrating Zephyr birthday, and maybe RGB LEDs, servo motors, blinky stuff. I think that could be fun. Cheesy maybe, but fun.
Cheesy for a cake. Has to be a cheesecake.
Yeah. Anyway. Wow. Okay, that was good. What else? Did you? I think you wanted to plug one of your, like, you've been also spending time on the this power regulator that you've been mentioning times in the past.
This is so good. I love this thing. Yeah, I found this while searching for Commit for notes for the podcast, and I ended up making a board for it, and then I ended up making a bunch of features. So I managed to land few new features for the TPS 55287. This is a buck boost converter 4 amps. Yeah, it's really cool. So this was merged, I think, a month ago, and it works. It fits very well with the regulator subsystem. It used to have voltage control, so you can, via software, switch it from like 0.7 to 22 volts. So this now has current limit control as well. And also you can configure via device tree some of the advanced feature. One of the cool things it does is cable voltage compensation. So if you have your power converter at the beginning of a long cable, and then you're going to have a voltage drop on the cable, you can set this thing as current measurement, and you can set it to increase the voltage on its own and to compensate for the cable drop. Very cool part. I used it to power a Raspberry Pi with a Pi 5 with a bunch of PCIe devices, sucking a lot of power, and the Pi 5 is very, very sensible to voltage drops. So it really wants this cable drop compensation feature. Yeah, cool part.
Nice. Yeah, what else? Something else I think also dropped during the holiday, but I only saw the announcement and blog post just yesterday. But it looks like we have a new kid on the block when it comes to libraries and framework to build embedded graphical user interfaces. This time it's from the Ant Micro guys, who are obviously very active in the community. Some of you probably know about Renode. They do a bunch of other stuff, and yeah, they just sort of unveiled Gravel. I guess this is meant to be pronounced GRVL, Graphics Rendering Visual Library,
Gravel.
which happens to which I mean, they have a bunch of interesting demos out there, like pretty advanced actually GUIs, and even the ability, just like one would expect maybe more on desktops, but the ability to describe the GUIs using XML and that kind of stuff. So it's interesting. I encourage people to check it out. And one thing that's also interesting, or it's a good way for me to remind folks that this is one of those projects that's out there on GitHub, but that is effectively a so-called West module. That is, you can easily pull the source code and the CMake configuration, etc., of the project into your own existing Zephyr workspace. It's just, essentially just a couple lines of pointing to whatever GitHub repo, giving it a name, whatever, and then you get the ability to enable and use whatever APIs and so on that the module provides, and it starts showing up in your alongside the rest of your Zephyr boards and all the kconfig options and whatnot. So yeah, that's an interesting one, and I will also include a link in the notes for. I think I mentioned that in the past, but those GitHub projects out there that are effectively so-called West modules, we have a placeholder in the Zephyr documentation to document them, to make it easy for people to discover about them. I would love to see even more. We are in the process of adding Edge Impulse, for example. Edge Impulse has like this framework for Edge AI and TinyML and so on. We have a tech talk coming up next week. Hint, hint. Please subscribe and make sure to not miss that one if you're interested in all things TinyML and Edge AI. But yeah, it's really nice to see more of those modules being added. We'd love to see even more.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar with how to work with modules, this is probably a very good time to do it, because there's a lot of traffic in the project. There's a lot of modules, and one of the conversation that keeps happening is that probably a bunch of the current modules are gonna become external modules, just because they are kind of heavy on the CI and on the whole process. It doesn't really make sense to have everybody download all the modules all the time for doing any kind of development. So yeah, modules, good feature.
Yep. So I think that's a wrap. One thing actually I could have mentioned as I was going through the GRVL stuff and sort of speaking of graphics, someone sent me a tip on Discord, and please, folks, do that. Like if you spot interesting things you think would be worth mentioning in the podcast, let me know. In this case, someone shared with me a job posting they saw from NVIDIA that explicitly, and I think the deadline to apply was just a few days ago, so it might be too late for you folks to apply. But this is NVIDIA looking explicitly for firmware engineers to work on embedded controller stuff and that have Zephyr experience. So that's cool.
What could they be using?
I really don't know. It might also be one of those Chrome OS derivatives, or maybe not. But it's really nice to see.
Yeah, and it's nice to see job offer that explicitly mentions Zephyr. Like at some point, we're just gonna stop talking about it because it looks like it's becoming pretty common.
Yeah, totally. Like, yes, yeah. But when it's in like new areas where at first one would not necessarily have expected Zephyr, I think it was
Yeah.
worth mentioning. All right, that's it for this week. Anything else, Fabio, before we wrap up and remind people to subscribe, give us stars and whatnot on
And
Apple Podcast and Spotify,
book their flight for FOSDEM.
or train, because like in Europe, it's actually really easy to get to
Right.
Brussels from many big cities. Like you have Eurostar and whatnot. So yeah,
No, that's it.
that's it.
See you next
See
week.
you all next week. Bye.
Bye.